Codemasters released the original Grid in 2008 as a spin-off to its popular TOCA series of racing titles. Now, in 2019, they've released the newly titled, Grid, this time in all caps to differentiate it from the original. And no, this isn't a remaster, it's a whole new game. But does this one sprint to the championship, or does it spin out and finish in last? Grid is the fourth game in the Grid franchise, following up Grid Autosport from 2014. Codemasters, though, has been developing quite a few racing games over the last decade or so, including the yearly F1 series and the Dirt franchise. Grid provides a decent amount of tracks and vehicle types for you to compete in various competitive races. There's two types of races, the straight-on lap racing, as well as best lap, where you go for the best time amongst a series of laps. Their tracks themselves, their locations and all, have a decent variety to them, though I do wish there were a few more locations. Each one of the tracks has a few different setups for it, so it feels like a different race, as well as there's things like day and night and rain to add into the mix, and the rain can really change up some of the way these tracks end up playing. There's both a single-player and multiplayer element. Multiplayer online, you can set it up for both just a random matchup or a private setup and pick all of the different settings, types of track, cars that are able to be used, and the like. It could use a bit more. It's kind of a basic online setup, but it serves its purpose. The main campaign has you working towards the goal of competing in the Grid World Championship. To get there and qualify, you need to get 4 major championships or 4 major wins. To do this, you have a large variety of setups with the different types of vehicles and races. Each one of these things is on a different track, it has different setups, different vehicles that you'll use. You'll have to buy some vehicles as you go in order to be able to compete in certain races, and you also need to complete, of course, a certain objective. Sometimes it's winning, but other times it's just finishing in the top 3. Every event you complete, you'll unlock more races, and so on and so forth, till eventually you get to those big wins and qualify for the Grid World Championship. Thankfully, though, the variety in the different race setups and vehicles that you get to use throughout the campaign keeps it from getting too boring, even with the relatively limited amount of tracks that you'll end up playing on. One of the few downsides to the game is there really isn't a lot of customization to the vehicles or anything. You're not really able to get in there and tweak the engine, tires, and the like. It's mostly just customizing the color scheme and a few options, basically meters that you can tick up and down for things like handling, but it's really not a lot, so real gearheads, you may be a bit disappointed. When it comes to the actual racing game, though, it's actually pretty fun. I've played a few of the Grid games in the past, and it is very similar. It leans more towards the arcade than simulation side of racing titles, but this gives it more accessibility overall. I like the various crashes that can occur and just cause havoc all throughout the race that unfortunately some racing games don't end up including, so it's nice to see damage and such being done. The flashback feature makes a return, so you're able to rewind a bit and redo parts of races if you don't like the way things are going, as well as there's a new nemesis system. Basically, if you run into opponents, cause havoc for them, they're going to get mad at you and try to run you off the road at any cost. Well, at least they should. I honestly wish they were a little bit more aggressive than even what they are in the game, but having that in the AI in general was actually pretty fun to compete against. Presentation-wise, the soundtrack really wasn't anything special, but I did like the graphics for the most part. There was a bit of pop-in on some tracks where I could noticeably see things coming in at the far distance, but for the most part, with the different weather effects, daytime, nighttime, and all that stuff, I thought they were pretty decent. From the technical side of things, load time wasn't the greatest, but it wasn't awful. Didn't run into any major glitching or any crashing, well, other than me, into the wall. Grid is available now on the PlayStation 4 for $59.99. It does have a Platinum trophy. The game is also available on the Xbox One and PC. Overall, Grid is one of my favorite racing games of the year. The mix between the arcade and sim works well. It's very accessible for those who have never played the series before, and for those jumping back in or have played similar games, you'll probably have no problem being able to enjoy this one, though it did disappoint a bit as far as variety of tracks and customization options. With everything said, I'm going to be giving Grid on the PlayStation 4 an 8 out of 10. That's going to wrap up this review, though. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.